So, hi everyone. After my 15 minutes of fame on LinkedIn, which Euan, I'm sure, will ridicule me for the rest of my life, I actually thought it would be interesting to have a chat with Euan about the cost of a bad hire. So, I can't remember who it was in the comments, but quite a few people actually asked, like, what is the actual cost of a bad hire? How do you calculate it? You know, what are the variables within that? So I thought maybe it'd be worth recording a quick 10-minute episode. If that, we might run out of things to say quicker than 10 minutes. But yeah, so that's the purpose. Euan, thanks for coming on at short notice.
Thanks. I'm excited to be on this special episode.
Special episode. Go us. So, I mean, the best place to start is probably just talk about what is the cost of a bad hire. We've now got somebody ringing on the doorbell. Brilliant start.
Is it a ring doorbell?
No, it doesn't, sadly. I think it was Oxford Economics or something like that did a study of the cost of a bad hire, and they estimated that it was somewhere between 42,000 and 130,000 pounds, and that's predominantly made up of a few things. So, recruitment costs up front, so agency fees, etc., management time to actually get through stuff, technology, and opportunity cost for having the wrong person in the role itself. And all of those have a different kind of sway to it. I think the one thing that we can talk about the most is probably management time. I would like to make a point before asking your experience of bad hires, Euan, that everybody seems to think that I'm lambasting or that I have lambasted Liz Truss. I just want to make it clear that it was clearly a joke. And secondly, bad hiring is not about the candidate, it's not about the employer, it's about the whole thing together actually just being not the right fit. And one of the main reasons that things aren't the right fit are a company mismanages expectations of a candidate, or a company offers something that the candidate can't deliver, or whatever it may be. And actually, if you look at the whole Liz Truss situation, she did exactly what she said she was going to do. So is it her fault that everything went completely wrong? Maybe, maybe not. That's for somebody else to debate. But she did exactly what she said she was going to do in all of the hustings. She was selected for those reasons, and clearly it turned out not exactly how people had hoped. So the point is that I guess I'm trying to make is bad hiring doesn't mean bad people, doesn't mean bad candidates, it doesn't mean bad companies. It just means the process that led to the hire didn't deliver on the results that people needed. So that's all I would just clarify up front. What's like I said, I think the main thing that you've probably experienced is like lost management time and opportunity costs. What's your experience of that been, Euan?
Definitely, I can relate to those. I think if we start with lost management time, there's the time for interviewing up front, and that's if you're doing 10 interviews, essentially an hour for each interview. If you do it in a traditional way, that's 10 hours or 9 hours lost. Obviously, one candidate gets the job. So you're losing that time, and the candidates are also losing an hour each. Then when the hire doesn't go well, you kind of have to write off all of that onboarding time, all of the time trying to integrate into the team, all the training time, which from my perspective and my experiences is not an insignificant amount of time. I guess it puts the importance on this whole piece around how do you find the right person in the first place. But you don't often think about all that time when a bad hire leaves. It tends to be written off, but it's a significant amount of time that you do feel it. I think you really feel it. The other interesting one, I suppose, that I would like to bring up in this conversation is around the impact that it has on the wider company. So not just us as individuals, hiring managers as individuals, but also the wider company, what the impact is on them, in terms of the other employees, the productivity of those employees, the morale of those employees. I think that's a really interesting part of the whole equation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen it time and time again. I've done it myself. I'm not saying, God, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I've hired the right people, and the right people have worked for me, and I'm not saying I've been the right boss for other people. So it happens quite a lot to a lot of people, and yeah, the if you consistently hire the wrong people, then the culture of the team can be incredibly damaged, because
Mm.
actually the kind of trust and faith in leadership and decision making ability, and are we ever going to retain people, etc. It obviously dissipates over time, which is not good. And then people don't feel empowered. They feel not very secure in their roles. I'm sure the next PM, which I think we know is going to be Rishi now, they're not going to feel particularly secure in their role,
Yeah,
since we've had 5 in the last however many years, like 3 minutes, it feels like.
yeah.
So it's that kind of churn and turmoil that actually means it's just really bad for the overall business. I
Mm.
completely agree. Um,
And it's not, I guess what's interesting about it as well, that when someone starts, they're with you for a few months and then they leave, it's not just like you go one step forward and one step back. You go like one step forward with the hire and then you go like multiple steps back because of all these other things that we just spoke about. Like obviously you've got
mm,
the lost time of getting them into that role. You've then got all the the lost time in the role onboarding, but then you've got all that loss of productivity and impact on morale. So I think you go multiple steps back rather than just one step back, one step forward.
yeah, absolutely. I also think, just from uh, if you flip it on its head completely, again, this is just leaning on the comments that we had on this ridiculous post that 3.6 million people have had impressions on, which I just find ridiculous. Um, the somebody was talking about looking at a candidate's experience and how short amount of time they've been in a job. Like, the cost of a bad hire does not just stop with the organisation. It absolutely goes to the person that was in the wrong place or at the wrong time, right? And they leave the organisation. They've got 3 months on their CV at some random place, and they're going to be questioned about it for a very long time. So it's something that, again, organisations need to take super seriously, and need to really learn from bad hiring decisions. Like, what in the process did they do right or wrong? I think one of the things I really love about what we do is that in both scenarios you can look back.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like a telephone interview, which is a subjective process where you go 9 a.m. and then 3 to 5 p.m. and the one that happens in the morning is totally different to the one in the evening. At least in our world, using Willo, you can actually go back 6 months and say, who did we hire? What did they say that was good in this part of the process? What did we like about them? What behaviors and characteristics did they show us? And then how do we replicate that again and again? And equally, if we made the wrong hire, what went wrong,
Yeah.
basically? What should have been the red flags for both parties? What in the process did, we say in our introduction video that maybe didn't align to actually what this person needed to do on a day-to-day basis, or wasn't clear about the fact that we're a startup, or whatever it may be. So it's super interesting. The reaction is very interesting in itself, and the debate between, like, whose fault is it? I'm not saying it's anybody's fault. I'm saying actually it's kind of everybody's fault. Like, what needs to be improved so candidates don't talk rubbish in interviews to get a job, and what needs to be improved so that organizations don't sell a dream that doesn't exist, or vice versa. Um, and how do you test skills potential rather than just,
Yeah.
oh, what have you done before? Sounds great.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So, have you seen any true horror stories for either party? Anything like the current state of the Conservative hiring policy?
No. I think the true horror story is exactly what the Conservatives have done, where you not only make the wrong hire once, you make the wrong hire multiple times. I think that's probably like what you were just saying a minute ago, where you don't learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
Exit interviews are quite an interesting solution to this problem as well.
Mm.
Exit interviews really allow you to shine a light on what exactly went wrong in the whole hiring process. Especially if it's like they've only been in the business for a few months, the exit interview can be really relevant to the
Mm.
hiring process because it'll be reflecting on a lot of the things that have just happened, through onboarding and selection process and things. But I
Mm.
haven't seen personally any horror stories, but I think the horror stories are really where businesses don't learn from those mistakes, and they just continuously try and fill the wrong person into the wrong role over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. What would be what do you think would be your top tips to kind of avoid a bad hire?
Well, the one that you just mentioned is my favorite one, which is don't try and sell a dream. I see that way too often where employers want to sell this dream role, and then the candidate joins, and then within the first few days, the reality of that dream don't quite line up with what the expectations were at the start, and then all you end up with is this like expectation of here, reality here, and they never quite meet in the middle. No matter how hard the
Yeah.
employer and the candidate try, they've missold the job, and I think that is probably one of the key things that should not happen. If you're going to try and avoid bad hires, is make sure that what the business is actually putting out there in terms of job description, and then follow up conversations and expectations is the reality of the job. If you're going to be
Yeah.
expecting that person to do potentially routine tasks over and over again, tell them those routine tasks. Don't tell them that every day is going to be a different day and it's all
Mm.
fun and interesting every single day if it's not, because you're just going to find the wrong person for the wrong role. And what's interesting about that as well is that it might be, you might think to yourself that that's not a sexy part of the job, so you remove it from the job description. But to the
Mm.
candidate that's perfect for that job, that might be one thing that they want.
They love
Maybe
it.
they want
Yeah,
consistency.
exactly.
So you're kind of you're putting your own biases into a job description sometimes, and then
Yeah.
influencing the actual expectation, based
Yeah.
around the job
I
that you think
totally
you would
agree.
like. It's really strange.
Yeah, well, it's like proximity bias to what you basically want to do, right? As opposed
Yeah,
to what do we need the person to do when they're in the job?
yeah,
Not not like how do I get somebody that I really like for
yeah,
this role?
yeah.
It might
That's
be
like
that the
me.
person's polar opposite to you, but that makes them the best person for the job.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah,
absolutely.
I think that's definitely a big tip that I would also agree with. Like it's usually mismanaged expectations one way or another,
Mhm.
basically. Like in pushing candidates fairly hard in interviews to just be as honest and actually just in put not pushing them because that doesn't work, but pulling them to be more honest and showing how honest you're willing to be about the role and trying
Yeah,
to tease out of them any reservations that they've got. I think the other thing about people making the wrong hire is trying to enable a diverse panel assessment at some point because again it's going to challenge your sort of unconscious and conscious bias to those individuals. But again, things that we can learn maybe from the situation is if your panel looks, sounds, acts, believes exactly the same as you do, then you're probably going to end up with the same kind of person that you've had consistently in the past. Whereas, actually, if you can assemble a more diverse thinking, a more diverse background of panelists before then interviewing the candidate or reviewing the candidate, depending on how you do it, then you're going to get better outcomes. And I don't believe that you should have to make all these decisions by consensus. But if you are going to make a consensus decision, at least make sure that that consensus is not built on people that look, act, have the same background, are basically the same person, because that's not a
yeah,
consensus. That
yeah,
is just agreeing with people that are the same as you. So I do that. And then I think the other thing is companies sometimes I know it sounds almost counterintuitive, but during the period after offer to onboarding, or just as you're kind of getting into onboarding,
Mm-hmm.
again, you need to not stop interviewing the candidate, not stop letting the candidate be honest with you and say, look, this is where we're up to, this is the job, this is how difficult it's going to be. These are maybe the bits that we didn't tell you about originally, because you're much better off at least finding out that it's a bad match,
Yeah.
In day 3 than you are actually finding out and trying to hold on to that hope for 3 to 6 months, and that opportunity costs morale, etc. Whereas if you just constantly check the alignment between you and your candidates from start date to onboarding, and then beyond, you're going to have a much better chance of getting the right people to stick.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd probably be my 2 pence worth. Anything else you'd add?
I think an interesting one recently around expectations is it's remote working, hybrid / office promise. We see a lot of job descriptions pushing remote working as the working style, and then the person starts and the reality is not remote working, and it's actually just a ploy to attract people, and then it's actually a hybrid or it's a full-time office role. And I think that goes back to this setting expectations from the very start. I know it's just one specific thing, but it's quite a common theme at the moment. So I guess it's worth talking about. Is just got to be real up front, because it's not gonna magically solve itself when the person starts. It might even be they accept the role. They're then there for 2 years, but for that entire 2 years, that might just be eating away at them. That this false expectation of remote working was planted in their mind at day one, and people don't just let go of things as well. They could be like a small thing that just eats away forevermore at that person. They maybe made plans to work remotely. They maybe started making wilder plans to maybe move abroad or do something, and then all those things have been shut down. They might not be leaving straight away, but they might just eat away at them until they do leave. So I think just trying to be upfront about everything and be as bare and as honest as possible at the start is the right thing to do. Particularly
which is really
things like that.
Which is a lot easier said than done, especially if you're in a large corporate organization and you've got governance and all of this stuff. And I think one of the common things is you have a challenge as a business in a certain thing, and maybe somebody's written about it on Glassdoor. The worst thing you could do is ignore it. Actually, the best thing you could do is say, "Look, we're aware of it. This is what we're doing," and the worst thing you can do is say that we're aware of it, this is what we're doing, and that be a load of rubbish. And you're just lying to try and overcome it. So you do actually have to, live and breathe the changes that you're trying to make. And I think, again, that comes from things like exit interviews, as you mentioned. That would probably be my final point is if you're not reviewing the process, if you're not understanding why people are leaving, if you're not understanding why people aren't succeeding within your business, and you find that it's a common error, then it's totally up to you to figure out why that's not working. It's not up to the candidate. It's up to the hiring managers, the leaders of the organization to get that information out and improve it.
Final thing, just before we go on exit interviews, actually, exit interviews don't have to be scary face-to-face interviews with people, because I think that's what a lot of people get put off by. They don't want to sit in front of someone on their last day and ask them questions. But an exit interview doesn't need to be like that. It could be a simple, email with a bunch of questions in it, or it could be a form. A lot of people use a form. We use a form sometimes, and the candidate can then fill it in, or the employee can fill it in, or you can use a Willo and actually have them record some answers in Willo. Those things obviously reduces some of the stress and anxiety around doing exit interviews.
Yeah. Well, I think this is it really has been an insight into British culture. But in the post, people talking about blame culture and stuff, and obviously it was a joke, number one. And number two, I'll reiterate, I wasn't blaming her for being a bad hire. She did exactly what she said she was going to. Do I agree with it? Again, not commenting on that. But the the funny thing is about exit interviews, and I've been in these horrendous exit interviews, is people do look for something to blame rather than something to learn from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's why are you leaving, not what could we do better.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're your exit interviews, you need to change them immediately.
Yeah.
Because it's just not worth it. You're going to get nothing from it except for everybody's going to leave the room angry at someone.
Yeah.
So what's the point?
We have a good blog on exit interviews. There's a good blog on the Willo blog about exit interviews.
Awesome.
Put that in the link.
Yeah, we'll put that down below. Obviously, I'm a linkfluencer now, so that's the kind of stuff you meant to say. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Anyway, thanks for your time, Euan, as always.
Thanks.
To catch
that
up.
Was a fun special episode.
Yeah, it was. Maybe we should do more of these, intermittent, founder chats. But there you go. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hope it was helpful.